Welcome to Zee Companion Insight on this Monday night with me, Jathan Bartek, our new debate programme on Zee TV, where we ask you to get involved with the big question of the day. And today we're asking you if you think the UK tax system is unjust. In the past few years, big companies like Apple, Amazon, Starbucks, Facebook have been heavily criticised over tax avoidance, and just at the weekend, it was revealed that Airbnb, the accommodation website, paid less than £200,000 in UK corporation tax last year, despite collecting £657 million of rental payments for property owners. All those companies say they pay the tax that's owed and always operate within the law. But all the while, working people, small businesses and poorer families say they're being hit the hardest. According to the Office of National Statistics, the poorest 10% of UK citizens pay 43.5% of their income in taxes. That's 10% more than the rest of the population. Recently, Labour and Jeremy Corbyn have been proposing a big shake-up to taxes, especially corporation tax, if they get into power. But the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, says the changes the government's made makes the current system as fair as it's ever been. Tonight, we're asking you if you agree. The UK tax system unjust. Are big corporations getting away with paying very little whilst the rest of us play by the rules? Perhaps you think the current system is as fair as it can be and that the taxes we pay give us the country we live in. Or have you found yourself struggling to make ends meet, not just with income tax, but council tax rises, insurance, premium taxes and more? Are you a small business owner, a shopkeeper that's struggling with recent changes? Have you even been tempted to move abroad? Or does the UK have the fairest system in the world? Let us know. We want to hear your experiences, or you may have a question for one of our panel. Numbers will be running on the bottom of your screen. Zee Companion at zeetv.co.uk is the email address. Tonight, I'm joined by a wonderful panel. Atul Pathak, in 2003, opened his first McDonald's franchise in Southall. Today, he employs over 2,500 people and runs a 31-strong restaurant group. Ajay Kumar Agarwal is a chairman of UK Services in the UK and is a certified chartered accountant in both the UK and India. Krishna Prasad Dahal is also a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and the ACCA and has more than 20 years of general practice experience working with taxes. And Prabhakar Kaza is here, a former general manager of the State Bank of India. Thank you all four for being with us for this debate tonight. So, is the UK tax system unjust? We'll start, no relation, I have to say, Atul Pathak.
It is not easy to give away your hard-earned money. But I believe it's only just that we all should contribute to our country and we should pay our fair share of taxes. I don't believe in paying a penny more or penny less, but we must pay to the system so that everybody can benefit from the system.
But the system in UK is highly unjust, unfair, phenomenally complicated, not transparent at all. And over a period of time, whether it's Labour in power or Conservative in power, I find that it's so manipulated that the rich get away with murder.
There are many instances which I can see there are unfair systems going on because only 10% of the households pay 43% of the tax, where 10% of richest pay 35% of the tax. That means there is still gap because now the burden should go from the poor people toward the higher people because it has you more progressive.
I can clearly see the research that you've been doing and the argument that you're making. Do you agree?
I kind of disagree with Krishna, definitely, because my personal opinion is the UK tax system is relatively fair. If the problem is that people talk about in general that it's unfair or this and that, and you listen to so many in media as well. But the problem is the misunderstanding of the bigger picture. And the people don't get the opportunity also to understand the bigger picture. So you just not talk about the taxes.
What is the bigger picture?
Bigger picture is that you should be combining the taxes and the public spending together to see what is the distribution in between the tax earnings and the distribution over the overall society.
See, I can see there are 10% of the taxpayer, which is 6% of the people, pay 60% of the income tax, yeah, and 1% of the taxpayer, which is pay the 30% of the income tax. There is no equal distributions because it has to be, because the mechanism right now in the equity taxation is neither, you can say, progressive, neither fair.
Because in this country, the less educated you are, the more tax you pay. Because if you earn more, you require an accountant to settle your dues. And what does he do? He and his group, firstly, they go to the parliament, manipulate the whole system, because they have a revolving door between the civil service and the accountants. So the accountants tell the civil servants what to do. They become accountants sometime. That goes on that way. And the whole system is manipulated in such a way that the rich don't pay much at all.
So the big businesses are using accountants. We have two accountants here.
Very
You're to blame.
well known.
It's all your fault.
Yeah.
Fair?
No, I would say it's fault. Means the thing is,
You know the loopholes, though.
Means once you come to the tax system in UK, right? So I kind of, to some extent, I can agree that it's a complex tax system rather than the unjust or unfair, and that complexity which the system has created has given possibly the bigger organizations to find the loophole in between, and then they go somewhere, to different territory to have their head offices, or they take offshoring or something like that to use the whole system and to use the loophole to pay. To find a way to pay the less taxes.
Let's just take a look at that then. I mean, we mentioned it in that opening video. Facebook paid just £2.6 million in tax last year on sales of £840 million. To minimise tax, they gave staff huge share bonuses, moved money overseas to other branches to avoid corporation tax, currently charged at 20%. Amazon, you were talking about basing yourselves abroad, basing themselves in Luxembourg. They have a huge operation in the UK. They paid 4 times less tax than local businesses there. And we know about Ireland and Apple, of course, giving them a sweetener deal. The EU says Apple now has to pay £11.5 billion in unpaid taxes, which still hasn't been paid. So are you saying that this system, and these are examples here as well, none of these companies, we should say, are doing anything wrong. They're operating within the law and paying the tax that they owe. But at the moment, the system is very much for them, is it? And against the average Joe?
Exactly. Like I said, the accountants tell the parliamentarians what to write down. And they write down in such a way that the big companies can utilize these loopholes. The loopholes are actually given to the parliamentarians to confer it in law. That's one system. Like you said, the big companies are just utilizing the tax legal system as such. The loophole, what you may call a loophole, or provisions or measures. But at the end of the day, this is just a systematic tax evasion. It's called tax avoidance, very, very euphemistically. But it's pure tax evasion created in such a way that everything is legalized and formalized. To an ordinary man like you and me, it doesn't look as if it is tax evasion. But the whole system is created in such a way that you can dodge tax and make it look legal.
Well, I don't think it's that is done deliberately to avoid tax. I think, like any system, it will have its plus points and negative points. It will have its pros and cons. So I think over the years, the government have closed many loopholes. Yes, there's some examples that you mentioned earlier on. Yes, they are bad examples, but that is an exception rather than the rule. Now, I'm a businessman, and I would say, small to medium-sized firm, and I employ nearly 3,000 people. I pay my fair share of taxes, and I think everybody should pay taxes. And I'm proud that I pay my taxes fairly to this country, so this country can function. Yes, there will be some people who will try to exploit the loopholes if there are any. It's government job to cut down those loopholes. And if you remember, a few years ago, you could pay your children's fees, school fees through before you draw taxes out of your company. You could run your car through your company. All those loopholes have been closed. So much so, you could even entertain your clients, take them overseas. And all those loopholes have been closed over the years. Now, I think the government is working, both governments, Labour and Conservative, are working to close the loopholes so that the big corporations like Facebook and Amazon cannot exploit those.
Yeah, I mean, let's just get on that point. The Tory government says they're cracking down on non-doms back in 2016. Rules are being implemented very slowly, they say, but they are working to hit harder on the big corporations to make sure that they're paying what's due. Do you think then really these stories about Amazon or Starbucks or Apple or Airbnb most recently at the weekend is giving everyone else a bad name?
I think so, but the most important thing is, if you remember when the Starbucks case come up, a lot of the customers were up in arms, and Starbucks decided they're going to voluntarily pay a certain amount of taxation. Now, the consumers, the government, and also the people who live here, we need to voice our opinion. So, hang on a minute, it is not fair that everybody around this table, we pay our fair share of taxes, but there are certain corporations that don't do it. And we should challenge them, and the government needs to bring legislation to make sure that those loopholes are closed and everybody pays their fair
Do you
share.
think that that's a fair point? It's only just a few of these corporations, or do you see them all actually playing the game, but just to a certain different level?
I remember seeing this on TV once when Google was asked that they're not paying enough tax. And they were in front of the US Parliament, one of those committees, treasury committees. So the Google president said, we pay our taxes according to the laws made by you. If we want us to pay a different kind of level of taxation, please change the laws. But don't blame us for not paying enough tax. I am paying the tax according to the laws made by you. And who makes the laws? The laws are made by, like I said, the accountants, leaving a lot of loopholes in that, so that again these bigger companies can be.
I disagree.
We have 17,000 pages of taxation. Taxation book in this country is 17 to 20,000 pages. Why don't we have a simplified book on taxes like, say, Hong Kong? 350 pages, so that I understand as a simple small company owner what I can, like you said, I can't drive and I can't take somebody, I can't fill petrol. These are things that I don't know at all. I just, whatever money I get, I pay tax. Because no accountant has ever told me, please don't pay the full tax. Please, these are all the exemptions that you can get.
So do you think it really accountants are the ones who understand it's very complicated?
That's how they have to a system to keep themselves going.
That's what I want to say. There are two things. You said that is a simplicity you want in the taxation system. We can argue on that what sort of simplicity you want in the system. Either you say that the government should reduce the tax, or you say that the government should do a tax which is on the flat basis, right? So flat tax rate. So that's a simplicity thing. So that's your opinion. And the complexity side, right? It's not the loopholes is created intentionally, right? That loopholes come from the complexity, and from where the complexity comes is that from us, because we ask all the time from the government that reduce the tax, from where they are going to get the money for the public spending, right? So if you ask them to reduce the tax on one side, they'll find a way to take the tax on the other side. And then the other side, they have to make it complex because they want more and more taxes or more and more money to spend on the public fund. So that's why I said, we should be looking at the balancing approach, neither the tax, neither the public funding. We should combine together and just see, what exactly the overall view.
My concern is, basically, our concern right now is why the big corporates are not paying the tax. This is due to the legislation. Is allowing.
Do you think that needs to change? Do you think the government needs to do more?
Only taxman, the taxman can't do anything. HMRC can't do anything until and unless CMPs or taxmen.
This government says it is bringing in changes. Labour, of course, proposed a lot pre-election about what it would do in terms of corporation tax as well. We'll talk about that. And it's interesting, are there alternatives? Do you think this system isn't fair? What should be brought in? We'll talk about that. And I want to talk about small business as well, because certainly a lot of the talk this year in the lead up to the election, the concerns around small businesses, shopkeepers, shops on the high street, saying they're being hit the hardest. All the big corporations have the perks, not them. If you're a small business owner, we particularly want to hear from you tonight as well. But this is all going towards a general conversation of everything is skewed for the corporations, but it's Joe Blogs like you and me, those of us that work not in that capacity, that are having to foot the bill. Get involved. The numbers are running on the bottom of your screen. You can email us too. I'll be back with the panel on the other side of this break.